Have you ever noticed how life suddenly starts to fall into place the moment you stop fighting it? Almost as if it's been waiting for you to open your hand. All our lives we're told, stay in control, push harder, never let go. But here's the paradox. The tighter you cling, the faster everything slips away. And the more pressure you apply, the less room there is for anything real to grow. Today we're breaking down the paradox of letting go. Why it's not weakness, not passivity, not giving up, but the only true doorway to inner freedom. Stay until the end because I'll share one idea from Jung that helped many of my students stop chasing what was quietly destroying them. When a person lives in a state of grasping, their attention is locked onto fear. Fear of losing, fear of not getting, fear of being nobody if what they want doesn't happen. And the stronger this fear is inside, the more desperately we cling to people, to situations, to status, to success, to promises that never quite work the way we expect. It's like an inner knot. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets. You've probably noticed how the most important things in life behave like water. Squeeze your hand, and it slips out. Keep your palm relaxed, and it stays. And the moment a person stops fighting, something interesting happens. The tension that once blinded them dissolves. The constant inner noise quiets down. Suddenly, there's clarity. You stop looking for external proof of your worth. You stop chasing results as if your identity depends on them. And the most surprising part? That's when the world starts moving toward you. Not because you stopped wanting something. Not because you abandoned your goals. But because you removed the dependency, you created space for things to unfold naturally. The paradox of letting go is that you still want what you want. You just stop forcing it. You keep walking forward, but you stop gripping every step with white knuckles. The desire remains, but it's no longer driven by fear. And when desire is infused with fear, it becomes a choice, not a survival mechanism. That's when things get interesting. Decisions become easier. People respond differently. Opportunities appear faster. Letting go is not doing nothing. It's doing things from a clear, quiet place, not from inner panic. Think back to moments when you stopped waiting for a call, and that's when it came. When you stopped obsessing over a project, and it turned out better than you expected. When you stopped chasing someone, and suddenly they became interested. It's not magic. It's the absence of internal pressure. A person who lives with pent-up expectation moves through the world as if they're constantly demanding something from reality, from others, from themselves. But when you finally let go, that demanding energy disappears. In its place comes a lightness that attracts more than any forceful effort ever could. And this is where understanding begins. You're not abandoning your life. You're releasing the struggle. And when the struggle stops, movement begins. But let's go deeper. Why do we cling so hard in the first place? Why is letting go so terrifying, even when we know that holding on is already hurting us? The answer is simple. Inside each of us lives the illusion that control equals safety. We convince ourselves, if I grip tighter, if I hold this situation, this person, this job, this dream with both hands, I can save my life from chaos. But the truth is very different. Control isn't about safety. Control is about fear. And the more fear we carry, the harder we grip. And the harder we grip, the less room there is for life to move. It's like trying to stop a river with your hands. The stronger you resist, the more forcefully the water pushes around you. And eventually, it does. We try to control everything because we're afraid to face uncertainty. It scares us the same way an empty room scared us in childhood. But that empty room is exactly where everything new is born. It's strange when you think about it. Everything meaningful, love, creativity, insights, unexpected opportunities, life-changing encounters, comes from what we couldn't plan. Which means letting go isn't giving up on your life. It's giving up the illusion that you can squeeze life into your fist. And walking away from that illusion takes maturity. It takes honesty. It takes the courage to admit, yes, I can't control everything, and that's okay. And when that realization finally lands, something inside you shifts. It feels as if a heavy weight you've carried for years suddenly disappears. As if, for the first time in a long time, you straighten your back and stand tall. And it's not just a poetic metaphor, it's physiology. The body literally responds to inner release. But here's what matters. Letting go is not a one-time act. It's a process that begins with honesty. It starts the moment you admit that you're holding on, not because you care, but because you're scared. Not because it's truly yours, but because you got used to it. Not because it gives you energy, but because you're afraid of what life might look like without it. You've probably noticed that the most painful attachments are always rooted in fear. A relationship that has long run its course, but you cling to it because being alone feels terrifying. A job that drains you, but you stay because you're not sure something better will come. A rigid self-image that feels like a mask you've outgrown, but you grip it tightly because you're scared of the empty space that might open without it. That's where the real source of clinging lives. And that's exactly why letting go is so necessary. To let go, you first have to see clearly that gripping doesn't save you. It only exhausts you. It creates the illusion of movement while actually keeping you stuck in the same place for years. Letting go is honesty. It's telling yourself, I won't hold on to what keeps me trapped in the past. And yes, it's scary, because beyond letting go lies emptiness. And emptiness feels threatening. But it's within that emptiness that the new can finally appear. There's one more thing people often misunderstand. Letting go does not mean apathy. It doesn't mean, I don't care anymore. It's not emotional shutdown. Letting go means looking at life with open eyes and allowing it to stay alive instead of trying to force it into a rigid structure. It means you stop suffocating your desires with control and let them move naturally. It means you give yourself permission to move forward even when the path isn't clear yet. And now we reach something crucial, something almost never mentioned when people talk about letting go. This is where the real paradox reveals itself. The most interesting part begins when a person finally releases their grip and encounters a completely new state for the first time. You could call it a quiet inner grounding. Not a storm, not a rush of euphoria, not a lightning bolt awakening. A quiet, stable support that appears inside the moment the struggle ends. Suddenly, you notice you're standing far more steadily than before, even though you're no longer holding on to anything. It's like realizing that after years of leaning on crutches, relationships, achievements, promises, you actually have your own legs. And that is the true gift of letting go. It brings you back to yourself. Not to a role, not to an image, not to the person you tried to be, but to who you really are. At this point, something remarkable happens. A person stops making decisions out of fear. They stop grabbing onto any opportunity just to fill the emptiness. They stop trying to buy love, attention, or a sense of safety. Inside, a new kind of space opens up, a space where you can choose instead of react. And in that space, life begins to sound different. You hear where you actually want to go and where you don't. You notice that many of the desires you chased for years were never yours to begin with. They were fear, not dreams. They were compensation, not calling. And when all of that finally falls away, very little remains. But that little is real. This is where the second major shift happens. Reality begins to change, not because you force it, but because you stop getting in its way. Everything meant to arrive, arrives. Everything meant to leave, leaves. People who stayed close only because of your anxiety naturally drift away. And those who feel your new steadiness are drawn toward you. Opportunities start coming from unexpected directions. You stop running after closed doors and start seeing the ones already open. And most importantly, you stop destroying the very things you're capable of building. Because that inner tension, the one that used to break everything you touched, is no longer there. But here is the most important thing, the part that must be said clearly. Letting go is a grown-up choice. It is the choice of someone willing to pay the price of honesty. Because letting go will bring change. You will have to part with what has been dead for a long time. You will have to admit that many of your dreams were forms of escape. You will have to release what you've been holding for years, just so you wouldn't have to face your pain. And yes, you will have to move through the emptiness. But emptiness is always temporary. It is not the end, it is the transition. It is the space between what was and what's becoming. And if you can hold steady through that transition, if you don't run back to old grips, if you allow yourself to walk through the quiet, then in that quiet, you will meet yourself. The real you, calm, grounded, the person who understands that life does not need to be controlled, it needs to be lived. And now that we've reached the end, it's time to deliver on the promise I made at the beginning. I said I would share a thought from Jung 1 that helped many of my students stop chasing what was destroying their lives. And here it is. We lose only what we cling to, meaning that the tighter we hold, the faster we lose. The moment we loosen our grip, we create space for what's real. And strangely enough, that is the deepest form of strength, allowing the world to be what it is, and allowing yourself to be who you are. So here's the question that every person needs to hear. What are you holding so tightly that it has already begun holding you? It might be a person you're emotionally dependent on, a dream that no longer feels alive, an idealized version of yourself for which you sacrifice your own peace. Write in the comments, what is one thing you're ready to let go of right now? It doesn't have to be dramatic. Just acknowledge it. Sometimes acknowledgement is already half the journey. If this video opened something important for you, hit subscribe. Here we talk about the things that change the way you think, and with it, your life. You'll be amazed at how much shifts once you let go of just one thing. Subscribe. What's coming next is even more powerful.